Alright, welcome back to another episode of Dave Makes Food. I was recently asked if I could make some sushi, tuna and salmon with mayo in particular, and although some of my Japanese ancestors might question my birthright after this video, I decided to give it a try. And as requested, let's start off by making the sushi rice. This is the exact type and brand of rice I will be using in the video. Kokuho is a medium grain rice. This is the other kind of rice I buy. Calrose is a short grain, but they're both fine for making sushi, and honestly I don't really find a difference in either. I buy whichever one is on sale. I haven't read the suggested directions in a while, but I'm sure it says for every 1 cup of rice, use 1.3 cups of water. I'm using 1 cup of rice, so the final water line should be at 2.3 cups. The first additions of water will be super cloudy from all the starch. We're going to wash it until the water is clear. It will probably take about 5 to 6 rinses. Then put it into your fancy Japanese rice cooker and press the sushi setting. Mine even has a fancy children's song, so that's pretty cool. If you don't have a rice cooker, I really suggest buying one. They make life so much easier and they last forever. Sushi rice can be made in a pot on the stove just like any other rice. I've done it before, but it will never turn out better than the rice cooker. While the rice cooks, we can prepare the fish. I'm using salmon because I had some in the freezer. I'm processing it while it's still half frozen. This makes it much easier to cut cleanly. Pan fry the skin for a snack while you work. I'll quickly go over some tips you should know for preparing raw fish. Being unsure about this is probably what deters most people from trying this for themselves. The first thing is the smell. There should be no fishy or unpleasant odors if using fresh tuna or salmon. If it smells fishy at all, don't use it for sushi. The second tip is to freeze your fish to eliminate any worries of getting parasites. It's impossible to enjoy a meal if you're worried about getting sick. If you're using a regular household freezer, make sure the fish is in there for a few days before serving. Freezing your fish guarantees that you will have zero risk of parasites. There's almost a certain chance any raw fish you've consumed at sushi restaurants is also frozen there. On top of that, there's also a good chance it was frozen on the boat it was caught. Farmed fish don't have parasites, but I still freeze them for peace of mind. Taking extra precautions is never a bad idea when working with raw fish. As long as you freeze and thaw with care, the quality of your fish should never suffer. The third tip is that sushi grade is not an actual regulated term. It usually just means that it's their freshest fish and that they've also probably thrown it in the freezer and are charging more for it. To summarize, as long as the fish looks good, doesn't have any trace of an unpleasant odor, and you throw it in the freezer for a few days, you will have taken the same precautions that most sushi restaurants do. Now back to cutting your fish. Because we're doing this when it's half frozen, you should be able to get perfectly clean cuts. Look at those perfect cubes. We'll store them in a container lined with paper towel to finish defrosting in the fridge. Don't forget about your delicious snacks. Alright, rice time. Transfer it to a bowl made out of something that doesn't hold heat in very well. I'm using Pyrex. Now we're going to need some rice vinegar to season the rice. This is the exact one I'm using. I've also used this Maruchan brand before and it's just as good. Same thing goes for this one. I also tried this President's Choice one because it was cheaper, but it's not the same at all. It's way too sour. Make sure the bottle says seasoned rice vinegar and not just rice vinegar. You can also make your own pretty easily. It's just rice vinegar, sugar, salt, and dried kelp if you're fancy. Fan the seasoned rice vinegar onto the rice by pouring it slowly over your paddle. I used 65 milliliters of seasoned rice vinegar for this amount of rice. Push the rice around gently, trying to separate each individual grain while evenly coating them with the sushi vinegar. Each grain should be firm, individual, and seasoned. Cover it with a towel and leave to cool. Mix it around every half hour so that it cools evenly. It will probably take around 90 minutes to come to room temperature. For the spicy mayo, we're going to use 1 tablespoon of gochujang. I've seen sriracha used, but personally I think the garlic flavor is too strong for sushi. And to that we'll add 2 tablespoons of mayo. You can use the Japanese QP mayo if you have it on hand, but honestly you won't notice the difference if you just use regular mayonnaise. Add 1 teaspoon of sesame oil to that as well. Mix them together and check for seasoning. The additional vegetable fillings are optional but necessary in my opinion. We only want the crunchy outside part of the cucumber. Cut it away from the seeds and inner parts. You can also do it this way to greatly increase the chance of cutting yourself. Either way, just get some nice juliennes. And slice some green onions for the fish mixture as well. We'll also be using some avocado. Okay, time to prepare the filling mixture. This was 225 grams of diced salmon. Combine it with 2 tablespoons of the spicy mayo, as well as the green onions. Mix them all together gently, and give it a check for seasoning. We'll also have to prepare our rolling mat. We're going to cover it with cling wrap to prevent rice from sticking to it and making life difficult. Use a large piece of cling wrap to cover both sides, connecting them on the back. Repeat on the other side. Make sure to remove as much air as possible. This is the seaweed that I'm using today, but I've definitely used other brands in the past. Run them over a flame quickly to increase the pliability and aroma. Then cut them in half lengthwise since we're making basic rolls today. Seaweed has 2 sides. One is smooth and shiny and the other is rough. This has the rough side facing up, so the rice sticks to it a little bit better. These rolls will have rice on the outside, but if we were making rolls with seaweed on the outside, we would want the shiny side facing outwards. To properly maneuver the rice, wet your hands and then shake off the excess water. If your hands are dry, the rice will stick to them and you will look ridiculous. It's easiest to make sushi near a slightly running tap. You want to spread a very thin layer of rice evenly around the seaweed, leaving the top 20% open. This will be the part that overlaps. The rice layer should be no more than 2 to 3 grains of rice high. It takes a lot less rice than you think it will. Shake on some roasted sesame seeds for added fragrance. Then grab the top corners and give it a flip. Use a butter knife to take the avocado out of its shell and apply it to the seaweed. We want to place the filling about an inch from the bottom. Add your beautifully julienned cucumbers and your spicy fish filling. The more you add, the harder it will be to roll, so keep that in mind. When rolling, I like to take the bottom corners and roll it over the filling and then tuck it under. I hold it there and then use the mat to complete the roll. From here, you're just shaping it. I was taught to make circles, but the square circles seem to be popular these days, so I thought I'd give them a try. Shaping it helps tighten the roll, but you also don't want to press too hard or it will compress the rice. You should still be able to identify every single grain of rice after you're finished rolling. I don't really have things spilling out of the ends, but if you did, this is how you would fix it. Place the mat on top of the roll, wet your opposite hand again, and press the filling back in. Repeat for the other side. Again, this is only if you need to do some last-minute surgery. To cut the sushi, wet your knife and shake off the excess water the same way you did your hands. It's not too bad for someone who never makes sushi. These rolls were delicious just like this, but I decided to make a few extra fancy. Ikura, or salmon roe, is one of my favorite sushi ingredients, and I think it goes perfectly on these spicy salmon rolls. I also added on some nice bias cut green onions for garnish. And that's how you make my spicy salmon rolls. I hope this was a sufficient explanation video. I really didn't expect it to be this long, so sorry about that. There are just so many small steps that are all necessary if you're gonna make good sushi at home. Even though there are only a few ingredients, it's not something you can just slap together. Each ingredient requires a good amount of care and attention. I hope after watching this you are confident enough to try it for yourself. Feel free to ask any additional questions in the comment section. I will be more than happy to answer them. I also hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and subscribe if you did. Look how nice that roll is. I'm actually pretty impressed with myself. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for another recipe.